Hello everyone from Ukraine. You're watching Channel 24, news channel from Ukraine. My name is Andriy Drozda, and our guest today is General Ben Hodges, former commander of the U.S. forces in Europe. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Hodges.
Andre, thank you for the privilege, and best wishes to everyone for a healthy, safe, victorious 2023.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can we start with the previous year's brief summaries? Considering the results of this more than 10-month war against Russia, full-scale war, when the armed forces of Ukraine defended Kyiv and liberated more than 40% of the territory previously captured by Russians, can we say that the Ukrainians achieved maximum success at this stage of war during 2022, or could something have been done even better?
Well, first of all, what's most important is that Ukraine has achieved irreversible momentum. I don't think there's much that Russian forces can do to change that momentum. Of course, there are many months of very hard fighting. Unfortunately, many innocent people are going to be killed or wounded or lose their homes and businesses. But the momentum is in favor of Ukraine, and Ukraine has earned that through very hard, tough fighting, skillful, thorough work by the Ukrainian general staff, and of course the resilience of Ukraine's people. Could have their mistakes been made, or could things have been better in certain areas? I'm sure of that. But when I think about the challenges and how much has been accomplished by Ukraine since this all started, it is impressive. The West sticks with Ukraine, and that's why I am optimistic about what's going to happen in this new year.
You're talking about irreversible momentum, but Putin still doesn't give up. In this situation, what will Putin do next? Will he continue to mobilize masses, a lot of 100,000 of Russians to the war against Ukraine? Will he close Russia's borders to prevent people from fleeing the country? And how will these decisions work?
So you're right. Putin has not given up. And in fact, the Russians have not changed their strategic objectives and their maximalist demands. So that's why the idea of some sort of negotiated settlement doesn't seem feasible to me. Instead, Russia is going to have to be defeated on the battlefield. The West is going to have to stick together, continue delivering everything that we said we would deliver, and keep the sanctions in place as well. So I imagine that the Kremlin is looking to, the only way that the Kremlin could get a positive outcome for themselves is to drag this out so long that the West begins to lose the will to support Ukraine and starts putting pressure on Kyiv to hurry up and negotiate to stop the fighting. And so there will be pressure there. And so I think the Russians will continue attacking the infrastructure of Ukraine for as long as they have weapons. And they will continue sending untrained, recently mobilized soldiers into the meat grinder in order to drag this out. That, in my view, that's their only hope. I don't see them correcting the many institutional problems that they have, or recovering their military capabilities in the next even few years.
Okay, so you're talking about the attempts of Russians to prolong the war as long as they can, just to make Western countries be tired of it, of helping Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. That's their strategy. How about the more active strategy from Russians? Would they try to start a new offensive campaign near Kharkiv, probably near Kyiv, or some destruction strikes near Kyiv or in western parts of Ukraine from the Belarus, and then the main direct strike to Kharkiv or so on? Are they still? Is it still possible? How real is this threat could be?
Well, certainly that's possible. And General Zaluzhny has warned about this. Others have warned about this possibility. And certainly the Kremlin would like to have the ability to launch some sort of a new counteroffensive or a new offensive from vicinity direction of Kharkiv or Kyiv. So it's possible. But I think if you and I know about it, if we're thinking about it, then certainly U.S. and U.K. and Ukrainian intelligence are thinking about it and are looking for that sort of a buildup. So we should not be surprised if it happens. I don't know, though, that the Russians have been able to put together a powerful force that has the armor, the transport, the logistics, trained soldiers, the air support to make this a successful attack. Now, of course, the Ukrainian General Staff is aware of this possibility and are taking the necessary steps, I think, to mitigate that risk, to be prepared. But the Russians, really what they want is to distract us, to cause Ukraine to have to divert capabilities to the north that are needed in the east and in the southeast. So I think this is part of it. But the General Staff is alert and will take the necessary steps. For me, the biggest unknown is Belarus. What will Lukashenko actually do? My sense is that he probably will allow Russia to continue to operate from there, but I don't know that he will actively participate. And I don't know that the people of Belarus are really going to just sit on their hands. I hope they will do to Russian forces now what they did to German forces in World War II, to attack the rear areas, to disrupt logistics, disrupt headquarters.
Now, this moment, the most fierce and active fightings are happening near Bakhmut in Donetsk regions. Why do Wagner groups of mercenaries continue to fail there, trying to capture the city for months and months, but no success there? And they were complaining lately about the poor logistics and the lack of artillery ammunition. Is it the main reason for their failure there near Bakhmut?
Of course, I don't know exactly why they have focused on Bakhmut so much, because it doesn't seem to have huge, significant military value. But I think it has become a matter of personal pride and vanity for Mr. Prigozhin to demonstrate that his forces are the best that Russia has. Of course, they're not, because of the quality of people that they are feeding in there are not properly trained. These are not cohesive, well-trained, disciplined units with good tactical leadership. I think it also reveals that there is no coherent command structure on the Russian side. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Prigozhin is not taking his orders directly from General Surovikin, and definitely not from General Gerasimov or Minister Shoigu. And so it's not surprising that his operations would be done not in coordination with other forces, not with air support, not with all the things that a professional joint military operation would include. This is a good thing for Ukraine, of course, that the Russian side continues to be disjointed, to lack coherence in what they're trying to do. And I think eventually this is going to be a fatal shortcoming for the Russian forces.
Looking back in the previous year, in June, the U.S. sent first Highmass systems to Ukraine. What is the role of Highmass systems in this war? Did it create a turning point on the battlefield? And how did this weapon actually change the course of events that happens after, liberation of Kherson and so on?
Well, certainly Highmass and other weapons that have longer range and can hit with precision are important. But I think we should all keep in mind that there is no one weapon system that is the silver bullet, that one weapon that does it all. What to me is most impressive is, number one, how quickly Ukraine learned to use HIMARS, how to employ it properly, how to protect it, how to take advantage of its capability. So that once again, the general staff and Ukrainian commanders have been very clever, much more adaptive than their Russian adversary at taking a capability and using it where it is most effective. And in my view, to target logistics, to target headquarters, to target other vulnerable sites that have a huge effect is the right way to use those kind of weapons. Obviously, I wish that the U.S. and others would provide even longer range capability, like the ATACMS missile that is fired from HIMARS, but with a range of 300 kilometers. Weapons like that and other longer range drones like the Gray Eagle and Reaper that would enable Ukraine to be hitting even more command and control and logistics sites, and to deny sanctuary for Russia launching weapons against Ukrainian civilian targets.
By the way, talking about ATACMS and those drones you mentioned, the Reaper and so on, what is the problem for United States officials not to give those weapons yet to Ukrainians? Why they are still making their decision and still, I don't know, hesitating and so on?
Yeah, this is quite frustrating. I don't know the exact reason. Obviously, I hear what you hear, that there was concern that this would be seen as an additional provocation or escalation of some sort, that they would be used against targets deep inside Russia. I don't know why this is I disagree with that policy thinking. Let me say it that way. Russia, we have deterred ourselves since before February. We have continued to say, oh, if we do this, then the Russians might do this. And actually, every time that we finally changed the policy and provided a new capability, the Russians were unable to escalate. So I think that we have deterred ourselves with an exaggerated fear of Russia using a nuclear weapon or something else. And so that's why this process goes so slow. Hopefully, eventually, we'll get there, and these additional capabilities will be provided. Of course, I don't have total insight and access to all the information, so I can only offer my assessment of what the challenges are, and to continue to advocate that the U.S. administration and the German government and others provide these capabilities. I read this morning that President Biden apparently has agreed to provide the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, which is what our mechanized forces use. That's a good capability. That's another step that they seem willing to take.
Thank you for pushing this decision forward and just mentioning that Ukraine really needs ATACMS and other effective weaponry systems. Were you actually surprised that the United States agreed in December to give Ukrainians the Patriot anti-aircraft system, given its price and the demand on the market for such a weaponry among other countries?
I don't know if surprise is the right word. Obviously, I was happy to see that decision made. Because this is not provocative. I mean, this is a defensive weapon that will help protect innocent people and infrastructure. If I was surprised, it's because it is such a rare system. I mean, we have only 1 battalion of Patriot for all of Europe. And so for the U.S. to find a battery, if that's what's coming, which would be 6, 7, or 8 launchers, that's a significant contribution by the United States in terms of what we're taking from ourselves to give to Ukraine when we have significant needs of our own. So that was important. But it's also important, Andre, for your listeners to keep in mind that, again, there is no one weapon that solves everything. 6 or 7 6 or 7 launchers of Patriot, that's enough to protect one big city if it is properly integrated with other systems. So Patriot was not going to provide a shield over all of Ukraine. You would never want to waste a Patriot against a drone, for example. I anticipate the General Staff will make good decisions about where to prioritize that Patriot. Where do they put it? And this is brutal. This is hard, where you decide what has to be protected and where do you continue to take risk. But in order to get the benefit of Patriot, it has to be employed in the right way, and it has to be integrated with other air and missile defense systems, not wasted against drones.
Exactly. And talking about how fast Ukrainians can learn to use Western weaponry systems, so you mentioned Highmass. How fast actually Ukrainians can learn to operate Patriot systems? Because usually it takes about a year or 9 months to learn all this stuff around it. Can it be accelerated, and when actually Patriots can be transferred to Ukraine and protect Ukrainian sky?
Yeah, well, for sure, it's not going to take a year. Ukrainians have impressed me since I first started working with them back in 2015 in Yavori, how quickly they learn new technologies, how adaptive the soldiers are to technology. And I imagine that the General Staff will select soldiers who already are experienced on surface-to-air missile technology, using Ukrainian systems or other systems. They already understand the concepts. And so that will accelerate the training time. And of course, this will not be normal schoolhouse training. It will be a condensed, focused training period. I would imagine it'll take at least a couple of months to become fully proficient, but not much more than that. A significant amount, a much quicker training period than what would normally be required. But it's also useful to keep in mind that this is not just about now. This is about the longer term, about Ukraine's long-term defense. And so, we have to address immediate requirements, but also longer-term requirements. I would also say, Andre, if you don't mind, on the idea of training time, I am, along with other people, advocating now to not wait for policy to begin training on different systems. For example, don't wait for the policy to give Abrams tanks or Leopards to Ukraine before you start training. I mean, you can do training now. We have always done this sort of thing, training on equipment before it's given or sold or whatever. So I think it would be smart to have Ukrainian tankers and tank mechanics working, getting familiar with U.S. Abrams or German Leopard or Leopard from some other country to start building up that competency. Don't wait for the actual policy decision, which may be still many weeks away.
That's a good idea, actually, and I hope someone will start to provide all those trainings before some weaponry is transferred actually to Ukraine. And Leopards and tanks are really, really important right now. We're all waiting about the Germany decision. By the way, France agreed to give Ukraine some armored vehicles. Some experts call them light tanks, AMX-10 or something like that, the tank on the wheels.
Yeah.
Would it make some impact on Germany's policies, on Germany's decision? Will they take a look at the France decisions and make this something in the same direction to give Leopards to Ukrainians?
Certainly, I hope so. There will be I'm already seeing it in social media now and in other media, the debate over is it a tank or is it not a tank, and so there will be some semantics about that. For me, that's not relevant. What's relevant is that the French AMX-10 will bring a good capability to Ukrainian forces. It's mobile. It has a big gun, and it will be a useful complement to work with Ukrainian tanks. So I see goodness in that, assuming that France also delivers the necessary maintenance required to keep it operational. I imagine that this will increase the pressure on Berlin to do more. But I can't predict that. It's their reluctance is deep rooted for a variety of reasons. Even though more and more Germans seem to be in favor of Ukraine, there's still a lot of resistance. I think in the SPD, the lead party in the coalition government.
Yes, a political decision should be done there. Over the past few months, the number of airstrikes and explosions on the Russian military facilities has increased, and sometimes we're talking about the objects situated hundreds of kilometers from the border of Ukraine. Were you actually surprised? Was it surprising to see those attacks on the airfields near Saratov or Ryazan? Strategic, very important air bases for Russians. How do the strikes affect on the course of war?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that Ukraine had the capability to do that. I mean, they're not sitting around waiting on the U.S. to deliver ATACMS, for example. They're going to do everything they can to take the fight to Russia, to deny Russia the use of sanctuary to attack innocent Ukrainian civilians. And of course, most people remember that Ukraine was the heart of the defense industry of the old Soviet Union, so that there is this residual expertise of engineers and technology and capability that is in Ukraine, not in Russia. And so I think the Russians must be a little bit worried now that there is no safe place, that all of their airfields, all of their bases are vulnerable. And I hope that Ukraine is able to increase that capability so that it can start hitting targets in Crimea as well as in deep inside of Russia with regularity, especially places from which missiles are launched.
Yeah, we can hear about some explosions in Crimea almost every day, so it looks like a systematic campaign to put a pressure on Russian military infrastructure there. So you say that Ukraine will liberate Crimea till the end of August if the United States and other partners continue to provide all the ammunition and weaponry. What kind of weaponry you actually mean here? What exactly should be given to Ukraine in the next 2 or 3 months to reach the liberation of Crimea?
So this is about long-range precision weapons, the ability to isolate Crimea. There are only 2 roads into Crimea, the Kerch Bridge and the so-called land bridge that goes through Mariupol and Melitopol. If Ukraine is able to sever, prevent a Russian reinforcement, resupply, all the logistics. If you can do that, and if you can make Sevastopol untenable for the Black Sea Fleet, make them move, then I think the conditions will be set for liberation of Crimea. So getting those capabilities, ATACMS, Reaper, Gray Eagle, other longer range systems will be important. Number 2, of course, continue to provide capability that helps Ukraine protect its own citizens, its civilians from Russian missile and drone attacks. And then, as we've been talking, armored vehicles, that will be helpful in the eventual resumption of mobile operations.
I have two more questions in the end of conversation.
Got like two more minutes, okay?
Okay, very short questions and very short answers. US President Joe Biden on Wednesday said that sending Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine is being considered. Why are Bradleys important for Ukrainians, and how much of them can be given to Ukraine?
I'm sure that there are a lot of Bradleys that are in storage that could be ready to fight quickly. This is a very good system. It's what we use, and it will bring real firepower to support Ukrainian forces. But it's not invincible. It can be destroyed also. So Ukrainian soldier units will learn how to employ them properly to take advantage of their capability. But it also is psychological, because this is another step. Now the U.S. is going to provide an armored fighting vehicle. Let's see if Germany and others can follow suit.
Okay, and the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, Kirill Budanov, says in his latest interview for ABC News that this spring Ukraine will start a next big counter-offensive campaign to liberate the rest of the territory of Ukraine. According to Budanov, the most fierce fights will happen in March. What kind of preconditions can we see right now for this kind of scenario to happen?
Well, of course, I think the General Staff has been very professional, very thorough, very methodical at setting conditions, which means to cripple the logistics so that Russian forces do not have the ability to move. They don't have the ability to bring up more ammunition. The whole transportation network needs to be crippled, whether that's from Highmass or artillery or drones or special forces or partisans or whatever. That's part of it. And then, of course, you want to blind the Russians so that their headquarters can't see, can't make decisions. So going after logistics, going after headquarters, those are, in my view, the key to setting the right conditions. Now, of course, they will go after Russian air defense, what we call SEAD, S-E-A-D, suppression of enemy air defense, so that Ukrainian Air Force could also support ground operations.
General Hodges, thank you so much for your time and for this conversation. It was a pleasure and honor for me to speak to you today.
Andre, thank you very much for the opportunity, and best wishes to you and your family and friends for your safety and for a victory this year.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you. And see you, our dear audience. It was General Ben Hodges, our guest today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. See you soon on our channel.